Breaking news, Iranian state media claiming the country struck an American vessel that was headed towards the Strait of Hormuz.
U.S. aircraft carrier is being sent to the Middle East.
Iran is the clear aggressor, harassing civilian vessels, threatening mariners.
ZO 5:11 local time, Strait of Hormuz. The water is flat, black, almost glassy, broken only by tanker waves and the orange blink of navigation lights. On the horizon, mountains above the Iranian coast sit silent under first light. But in less than 12 minutes, this narrow ribbon of sea becomes a kill box. 23 Iranian boats are incoming. What unfolds next will show exactly how fast modern naval intimidation can turn into a calculated demonstration of force. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another waterway. At its narrowest, it compresses global energy traffic into a corridor so tight, so exposed, so politically charged that every captain passing through knows one mistake can shake oil markets in London, Mumbai, Shanghai, and New York before breakfast. To the north, Iran's coastline, with islands like Qeshm and Larak offering radar coverage, missile positions, and hidden coves for fast attack craft. To the south, the shipping lanes used by supertankers, destroyers, and warships from half the world's major navies. And moving through that corridor in this fictional scenario is one of the most visible symbols of American naval power on Earth. USS Abraham Lincoln, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier displacing more than 100,000 tons, escorted by guided missile destroyers, an Aegis cruiser, and a full-carrier air wing overhead. Imagine you're standing on Lincoln's island structure. Salt in the air, jet fuel on the wing, heat already rising off the deck before sunrise. Beneath you, nearly 5,000 sailors and aviators are part floating city, part war machine. FCA-8 and EF Super Hornets sit chained and armed. EA-80 Growlers wait with electronic warfare pods. An E-2D Hawkeye circles high, its radar sweeping the strait. MH-60R Seahawks are alert and ready. Off the flanks, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers carry SPY-1D radar, standard missiles, ESSM interceptors, naval guns, electronic warfare suites, and the training to bring all of it together under pressure. And pressure is exactly the point. Across the water, commanders inside the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy are not trying to sink the carrier with speedboats alone. That would be amateur thinking. Their plan is more subtle, more dangerous, and far more political. 23 fast attack craft, a mix of missile-capable PACOP-type boats and heavily armed fast inshore attack craft, are ordered to surge from multiple points near Qeshm, Bandar Abbas, concealed launch areas along the coast. Their mission is to mass quickly, saturate the American picture, force the carrier group to compress its maneuver space, and create a visual confrontation dramatic enough for cameras, propaganda, and strategic pressure. Behind them sits the real bite, shore-based anti-ship missile batteries, drone surveillance teams, and coastal radars waiting to exploit the chaos. From Tehran's perspective, the calculation looks sharp. The strait is crowded. Civilian shipping creates clutter. The Americans, they believe, will hesitate before firing in one of the world's most economically sensitive waterways. If the swarm gets close enough, if the escorts are forced to reposition, if one missile battery gets even a brief targeting window, they can claim they challenged a carrier strike group in its most vulnerable environment. Not a battle, they think. A performance, a showcase, a message to every capital in the region that the narrow waters of Hormuz still belong to pressure, intimidation, and fear. But there's a problem with their plan. What they didn't account for is that the carrier strike group is not seeing the strait as separate pieces. Not a radar contact here, a civilian vessel there, a suspicious wake near the islands. Lincoln's force sees one integrated battlespace, the E-2D overhead, surface search radar from the escorts, electronic emissions, infrared signatures, tactical data links, voice intercepts, pattern analysis. While Iranian commanders believe they are assembling a sudden swarm, American operators are already watching the pieces connect into a hostile shape before the first boat clears its harbor approach. And here is the flaw in their thinking. In 2026, a naval swarm only works if the defender is confused. Lincoln's group is not confused. It is waiting, quietly, coldly, measuring distance by the second. 0599, an MQ-4C Triton tracking traffic east of the strait flags multiple small craft accelerating out of pattern. Not random fishing behavior, not local transit. Coordinated vectors. Seconds later, the E-2D Hawkeye overhead confirms unusual convergence from 3 separate launch points. On the cruiser's Combat Information Center screens, green symbols begin aligning into a fan. A lieutenant watches the geometry tighten and says the words every sailor in the compartment understands immediately. This is deliberate. 0521. Link 16 shares the picture across the strike group. The destroyers adjust station. One shifts slightly forward to widen the defensive arc. Another moves starboard, opening a crossfire lane. MH-60R spool up. Super Hornets on alert are ordered to cockpit status. Electronic warfare teams begin recording emissions from the Iranian coast. You're there now inside CIC, red lighting, low voices, no wasted motion. Headsets crackle, track numbers multiply. The calm is gone, but the discipline is absolute. 0523, General Quarters. That announcement changes everything. Across the carrier, hatches dog shut. Sailors run to battle stations. Flight deck crews snap into practiced choreography. Missile crews on the escorts move from readiness to action. Bridge teams on every ship are now navigating not just traffic but intent. Could you make that call with tankers nearby, neutral crews in the lane, and cameras probably already rolling from the other side? This is the burden of modern deterrence. One error and the whole region burns. The first warnings go out over bridge-to-bridge radio in English and Persian. Unidentified armed craft approaching a U.S. Naval formation are ordered to alter course immediately. They do not comply. 0525. The boats keep coming, now above 40 knots. Wake plumes broaden behind them like white claws across the water. Infrared shows engines pushed hard. Several craft begin spacing themselves exactly the way trained swarm units do. Leaders ahead, flankers wide, missile boats slightly recessed, command craft hanging back. Overhead, the Hawkeye detects Iranian drones lifting from inland sites to feed targeting updates. On the escorts, SLQ-32 electronic warfare suites begin dissecting the spectrum. The pattern is no longer ambiguous. 0527, a second warning. Then warning flares from an MH-60R crossing low over the lead. Still no breakaway. One Iranian boat fires a burst from a heavy machine gun across the water, short of the outer destroyer. Not a hit, a signal. That is the moment the event crosses the line from harassment to engagement. And once that line is crossed, the response comes in layers. The outer layer starts in the air. Two Super Hornets already airborne swing south to north. They're targeting pods, locking the fast boats in sequence. An EA-18G Growler begins electronic attack against coastal tracking radars, trying to hold the carrier group in a firing solution. The Hawkeye continues feeding the common picture. At the same time, the MH-60Rs descend on the lead elements of the swarm, using speed, angle, and standoff weapons to break cohesion before the boats can compress around the formation. ZO 528. First shots, APKW's guided rockets streak from a Seahawk into the lead Iranian boat. The hit is surgical, white flash, orange-blue, hull rolling left. Another helicopter engages a second craft, shredding its engine block and throwing spray 30 feet high. 2 down, 21 still moving. Then the middle layer activates. The outer destroyer's Mk-38 gun opens up 25mm bursts, walking across the water ahead of a flanking cluster. One boat turns away, another keeps charging. The 5-inch gun does not waste a second round. One thunderous shot, impact. The craft disintegrates into burning fragments and foam. On the opposite flank, another destroyer uses combined fire from stabilized guns and armed helicopter support to cut down 2 more. 17 remain, but the Iranian commander pushes forward. This was always meant to be a timed pressure tactic. Get close, force the image, force the hesitation, and for a few violent minutes it almost works. Small craft sprint through tanker shadows. Smoke begins drifting across the water. Civilian traffic turns chaotic. Merchant captains are suddenly hearing warnings, seeing tracers, and realizing they have entered a battlefield in less time than your lunch break. Now, from the enemy's view, this still feels salvageable. They still have numbers, they still have coastline support. And then they trigger the second phase. 0531, coastal launch. 6 Noor anti-ship cruise missiles erupt from concealed positions near the Iranian shore, their boosters punching fire into the dawn before the missiles flatten into sea-skimming profiles. That was the real plan all along. The boats were the hands, the missiles were the knife. But Lincoln's group was already waiting for the blade. The E-2D seized the launches immediately. Aegis computers on the cruiser and destroyers fuse track quality almost instantly. Standard missiles leap from vertical launch cells with that unmistakable violence, white columns and shockwaves slamming into the morning. One, then another, then another. The sky erupts. The first pair of SM-2 interceptors catches 2 incoming missiles far out over the water. Quick flashes, debris falling. The next layer uses ESSM for the lower, tighter geometry as the remaining missiles weave through clutter and altitude changes. One cruise missile vanishes in a mid-air firewall. Another breaks apart, spinning into the sea. A fifth gets through the outer envelope, only to meet a final wall of defensive fire. CWS begins its brutal mechanical scream, a sound no one forgets once they hear it. A wall of tungsten slices the air. The missile disappears into sparks and fragments less than 2 nautical miles from the formation. How many get through? 1. Just 1. And even that last missile does not find the carrier. It slams into the water after electronic warfare and decoys pull it offline. 100,000 tons of American steel keeps moving. By 0533, the tactical picture flips from defense to controlled elimination. Iranian boats are still inside weapons range, but Now they are blind, fragmented, and exposed. Their drones are being dropped or jammed. Their coastal radars are under electronic pressure. Their missile gamble failed. What was supposed to look like a daring confrontation now looks like prey caught in open water, a hunt. Lincoln's air wing moves fast. Super Hornets armed with laser-guided munitions and precision rockets begin methodically targeting the most dangerous surviving craft first. Missile-capable hulls, command boats, then flankers. Seahawk crews call out hits in clipped, emotionless bursts, splash one, disabled one, secondary explosion. On the surface, the destroyers hold disciplined arcs, avoiding civilian lanes while squeezing the swarm from two sides. 0534 to 0538 is pure collapse for the attackers. A cluster of 4 boats attempts to split around a tanker to force close-range confusion. A Seahawk drops low, catches the lead boat with rockets, then shifts left as deck guns from the escort finish another. 2 more try to reverse course toward the Iranian coast. A Super Hornet, high and fast, rolls in and places guided fire precisely ahead of them. 1 detonates, the other loses propulsion and drifts. Off Lincoln's port side, 3 surviving craft make their boldest move, charging directly toward the screen as if speed alone could revisit. They are met by combined 25mm helicopter fire and 1 savage 5-inch round that ends the run instantly. Not a battle, not a test, execution. By 0539, the 23 boats that surge toward the strike group, 14 are destroyed, 5 are disabled and burning, and 4 are fleeing north at maximum speed. The American formation is intact. No U.S. ship has been hit. No flight operations have stopped. And now the question facing commanders is no longer whether the attack has been defeated. It's how far the response goes. Because once anti-ship missiles are launched at a carrier strike group, doctrine changes. Self-defense becomes suppression. Suppression becomes denial. Denial becomes a wider message. 0540. Authorization comes through the chain. Limited but overwhelming counterstrike. The objective is not regime change, not invasion, not an open-ended war. It is systematic erasure of the immediate kill chain that made the attack possible. Coastal radars, missile batteries, drone relay points, speedboat staging sites, and command nodes tied directly to the assault. You're in that cockpit now, catapulted off Lincoln with the deck shaking under you, afterburners lit, Persian Gulf morning spreading gold across the canopy. Ahead lies the Iranian coast. Your target package is already loaded. The first wave is electronic and invisible. Growlers jam and deceive, punching holes in radar awareness around Qeshm Island and the Bandar Abbas approaches. Then the kinetic wave arrives. Tomahawk land attack missiles fired from the escorts and a submerged attack submarine arc toward pre-planned coordinates. Coastal radar sites, missile revetments, communications bunkers. Almost simultaneously, Super Hornets strike mobile launch support vehicles and drone control stations with JDAMs and standoff glide weapons. Harm missiles go after any radar foolish enough to light up. This is where the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. Iran sent 23 boats and 6 missiles into the fight. The response packages more than 70 precision weapons across sea and air in under 15 minutes. 1 Tomahawk slams into a command building near a naval support zone outside Bandar Abbas, collapsing the upper structure and severing communications. Another destroys a hardened radar position overlooking traffic lanes near Qeshm. 2 more hit prepared missile sites, the kind built to threaten shipping whenever Tehran wants leverage. Super Hornets hammer boat pens and maintenance shelters used to launch fast attack craft. Secondary explosions ripple through fuel and ammunition stores. On infrared, the shoreline begins blooming with heat signatures where minutes earlier there had only been concrete, camouflage netting, and confidence. And still it continues. A second air package targets the infrastructure behind the infrastructure, not just the boats that attacked. The cranes, fuel points, trailers, and mobile control nodes that allow another swarm to form tomorrow. This is modern naval retaliation at its most clinical. Bases, then production, then command chain, not revenge. Future capability denial. Could this spiral wider? Of course it could. Every commander in the region understands that, which is why the strike remains disciplined. No city centers, no broad area bombardment, no indiscriminate fire. Only the architecture of the attack itself dismantled piece by piece before it can reset. 0553. The last fleeing Iranian boats reach the protection of coastal clutter. They are not pursued into dense civilian patterns. The message has already been delivered with unbearable clarity. Final tally, 23 boats sent, 14 destroyed, 5 disabled, 4 escaped. 6 anti-ship missiles launched, 5 shot down, 1 decoyed into the sea, 0 U.S. warships lost, 0 strategic effect achieved. Total duration from first swarm detection to the final strike impact on coastal targets, 42 minutes. 42 minutes. Less time than a movie episode. Less time than a morning commute in most major cities. In that window, a carefully staged act of pressure became a failed attack, and a failed attack became a demonstration of why integrated naval warfare is so unforgiving. Numbers alone did not decide this. Speed alone did not decide it. Geography did not save the attacker. Information dominance did. System integration did. Training did. The side that saw the whole battle space first owned the timeline, and the side that lost the timeline lost everything after it. That is the real lesson of this fictional scenario. In the Strait of Hormuz, small boats can still harass, missiles can still threaten, geography can still compress choices. But if a swarm enters range against a carrier strike group that is networked, disciplined, and politically cleared to defend itself, intimidation burns off very quickly. The image changes. The story changes. The attacker stops looking like a challenger and starts looking like a target set. And that matters far beyond this narrow strip of water. Because future conflicts at sea will not be decided by who shouts louder on state television. They will be decided by detection speed, sensor fusion, rules of engagement, electronic warfare, and whether commanders can make the right call with seconds to spare while thousands of civilian lives and a huge share of global energy traffic move around them. So how does this change your view of modern warfare? Share your take. Subscribe to join the discussion.